Okay, so yes, how many divisions can I make of this circle? What is the maximum? What are the maximum number of divisions I can make of this circle? You see, I've divided the perimeter, right? The perimeter is divided here into, I think, 5, 10, 10 divisions. Someone messaged 360. Is it correct? That's 320. Okay. So he messaged 360. Is that correct? Can I only make 360 divisions of that circle along the perimeter? Infinite. Yes, that's correct. You see, the smaller you go, how small is very small? We don't know, right? So you can make infinite number of divisions of any component or any dimension, right? So what we are doing in finite element analysis is we are trying to divide a component into finite number of elements is what we call. Okay, each one of these we'll call it an element. Okay, in finite element analysis, when we divided the component, each unit, each division will represent an element is what we call. Okay, one element, second element, third element, like that. And the point where these two elements are meeting is called a node. Okay, so we have nodes and elements. So if, for example, this circle being divided into 10 divisions, we now have 10 divisions of this. And let's say I want to measure the perimeter. Okay, so you see, from here to here, if you draw a line, and then here to here a line instead of an arc. Okay, instead of an arc, I am drawing a line. Okay, let me draw this. I'm not sure if I can draw correctly. Okay, like that. Okay, and for example, I draw the same circle and I make it much fine now. Okay, so instead of having 10 divisions, let's say we have 20 divisions. Okay, so each division becomes smaller. If I now draw again that straight line from this node to that, okay, and this continues, right? Which one of these will give me a better or an accurate, you can say, perimeter? We are trying to measure the perimeter of the circle. Which one of these two? This is the first one and this is the second one. Which one of these two will give me a better or an accurate measure of the perimeter of this circle? First one. Why so? Can you elaborate, Mr. Who was it? 367. Why is it that the first one is able to give me a better or an accurate perimeter than the second one? Someone said something and was not audible. Because it is drawn with certain degrees. Drawn with certain degrees. You see, let me clarify. This is made of, we have divided into 10 divisions. Okay, this circle. Okay, 10 divisions, and here you have 20 divisions. Okay. Okay. 20 divisions. Okay, here you have more divisions. Okay, smaller than the first one. And then the same thing continues. We have drawn from one node to the next a straight line instead of an arc. Okay, because in computer it is being the computer takes it as like this only. Okay, so now is it clear? 10 divisions here, 20 divisions here. It is drawn with certain degrees. I couldn't understand you, but you see, when you measure this, instead of an arc, you're drawing a line. Okay, this line is definitely shorter than this arc. What this arc will measure will be somewhat higher. The length will be somewhat more. What the length this arc covers is more than the length of this line. Okay, so you add up this arc and you add up these lines, they'll be different. Okay, but once I start decreasing these divisions, you have these lines at shorter intervals. Okay, so the approximation you are doing, the approximation becomes, here you are more approximating, you can say. Here there is less approximation. Do we agree, or do we have some questions here or doubts here? Yes. You see, what I'm trying to tell you is this will give you a better or you can say an accurate uh, value of the perimeter. Okay, is that clear, or do you want me to explain? Yes, sir. So you see, the second one will give us an accurate uh, value of the perimeter because we have more divisions here, right? So that is why we say that, okay, understood. Okay, that is why we say that this is an approximate technique. Okay, so let me clear this. So what we represent in FEA, how we represent every element is we imagine it to be a spring. Okay, every element to be a spring, and we know that a spring has got stiffness. We see the spring, the stiffness of a spring, as we know, is the formula is force by deflection. How much force you are applying, how much force you have to apply to have so and so deflection, right? So there are two elements here. Okay, this beam was divided into two elements, so each element will have its own stiffness. Okay, just as we divided this into 10, we have two divisions here. So we take each element's behavior. What we are doing in FEA is we'll take the behavior of each element, we'll try to club them all together, we'll try to add them, is what we call is assembly. Okay, each element will have its own matrix. What matrix? Let's say this stiffness matrix. Okay, how much is the, what is the behavior of this element will be given by this stiffness matrix. So all these stiffness matrix, okay, for example, we have only two here in this component. So you'll add up these two matrices, we'll have a global stiffness matrix that will give us the behavior of the total component. Okay, so what we are basically doing in FEA is we are dividing a complicated component into regular shapes. Okay, what we know, whose behavior we know. Okay, and you add up all those behaviors to get the global behavior. Okay, the total behavior of the system, right? From complicated to simple, Okay, you club them all together and we'll know the behavior of the complicated component. Clear, right? That is a basic principle of FEA. That's how all the FEA packages work. Okay, you divide them. What we call that divisions is nothing but mesh. Okay, meshing. When we divide the complicated component into elements, okay, that the process is called meshing, or discretization is also another word. Is that clear, or do you have some doubts in this basic principle of FEA? So it is clear. You see, I was talking about this global stiffness matrix. You'll assemble those stiffness matrices of individual elements into a global stiffness matrix. Here it will look like this. This will give us the behavior of the system. Okay, degree of freedom, as we know, the what you can say, as for this FEA, it is defined as the ability of a node to translate or transmit the load. So either you allow that translation or rotation. For example, we have in total 6 degrees of freedom, right? For a point in the 3D space, it can translate in 3 directions. It can rotate about those 3 axes, right? So we constrain some degrees of freedom. Okay, for example, that beam, if it is fixed here, for this node you will fix all degrees of freedom. It cannot translate in those in 3 axes, nor can it rotate. So like that. So boundary conditions, as I said, what all we know, like this is fixed here, a load is applied here. What we know about the system, those are called boundary conditions. Okay, they are used to eliminate the unknowns in the system, because we know them, right? We know that the load is there, we know that it is fixed, but the unknowns are what are the stresses, what are the displacements generally. Okay, those are the unknowns. Nodes, elements, and element shapes. Nodes, as I said, the corner points of each elements. Okay, the nodes are the points where elements join each other. Okay, this is how forces from this element will go on to the next through these nodes. Okay, represent the corner points. Elements, as I said, specified by nodes. Nodes make up the element. One way to see it. Element shapes, we have different elements. Okay, point element, line element, like this. First order and second order. If you have only 2 at the extremes, then it's first order. 1 in the middle, this is used for more complicated cases. We call it quadratic or second order. And then you have area elements, 2D, okay, quadrilaterals, triangles, and second order of them. And then 3D elements are these volume elements. If you want to analyze 3D components, we'll mesh them into simple 3D shapes like this hexahedron, okay, first order or second order, or this wedge shape. We also have tetrahedrons, what we call tetra elements. So those are used, these are the different elements that we use to divide the component or to mesh the component. Okay, general procedure. We'll see that in the as we go along. Okay, FEA through ANSYS. This is the general flowchart, you can say, of how what goes in FEA. Okay, what happens in FEA. So what we are doing is, there is a physical problem. We are trying to simulate that. We are trying to imitate what is happening in the experiment. You are trying to simulate that. Imitate, copy, that those are the words, right? So in the pre-processing part, you take the model, okay, from the CAD software. You generate nodes, elements, basically meshing. You apply boundary conditions, material properties, loads. Okay, this is the pre-processing part. the preparing of that component for an analysis. The next part is analysis solution. This will be taken care by the software. It will generate element matrices, compute nodal values, for example, displacements or temperature, their derivatives, like with displacement, you get velocity like that, and storing the results. And in the in the post processing, you are analyzing that, okay, with different things like you have contour plots, you have curves, deformed shapes. So these are the three steps you can say that goes in FEA: pre-processing part, solution, and post-processing. Okay. Any doubts regarding that? Okay. These are the different packages that we have in FEA. Okay. Each one having its own use. Okay. So there are domain specific software as well. ANSYS is a general one. Edina, Abacus, Hypermesh. This is just for meshing. Although you can perform analysis, but mostly this is used for meshing, preparing the mesh to be sent for analysis. That pre-processing part we saw, right? Nastran, Cosmos, NISA, Mark, LSDyna. Okay. This is about the ANSYS one. General steps, what we do. So the first exercise is you just create the key points. Okay. And then these points is what we'll create with the help of coordinates, X, Y, and Z. Once those key points are created, we'll join them so that it forms a beam. So that's your first exercise. Key points and then join them to have the beam. Okay. Simply supported beam. You've covered this in your strength of materials, I believe, or mechanics of material, whatever was the subject name. You have learned simply supported beam, cantilever beam. Okay.
Strength of materials only, sir.
Strength of materials. Okay. So different
Yes, sir.
universities have different names for that subject. So, okay. So a simply supported beam with a load 20 kilonewton at a distance of 2 meters. That's basically half. So in the midway, so what we are going to compute is the shear force and bending moment diagram. Okay, for the beam. We have done this in the subject as well. So here the software will give us the SFD and BMD diagram. Okay. And what all the inputs are will be given. The cross section area of this beam will have an effect, right? The cross section is also uh, a parameter. Okay. That is to be used as an input. So the cross section of the beam and the Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio, material properties. So we'll analyze that to check the SFD and BMD. Same thing, two loads you have here, simply supported. Okay. Simply supported with uniformly distributed load. Okay. Instead of a point load, you have uniformly distributed load. And same thing, SFD and BMD is what we will calculate. And then UVL, uniformly varying load, simply supported beam with uniformly varying load, SFD and BMD to be computed. And then the screen is being shared, right? You can see the different exercises. Yes, please confirm if you can see the screen.
Yes, sir. It is visible.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay. So cantilever beam, you want to compute the SFD and BMD, point load at the end. Okay. And then with the help of key points, you create this truss structure. Okay. You have coordinates, we'll create key points and then we'll join them. And then this truss structure will find the stress and the reaction forces, nodal displacement. Okay. Loads are given, the lengths of these links are given, right? And then this exercise, stress analysis of rectangular plate with a circular hole. You have the loads at the end, a circle in the middle. So you will have some stresses, right? Because the cross sectional area here is less because you have a cutout here, circular cutout. So the stress naturally would be more here, roughly here. So we'll analyze that, deform shape of the hole and determine the maximum stress distribution along AB, this one here, along this line. You may use T is equals to 1 mm, thickness of the plate. E is given Young's modulus, T Poisson's ratio, like this. And then this UDL at the end. Okay. And then the last exercise is bracket. All degree, you see here, all degree of freedom constraint. You will constrain all of this and apply load here. So this will try to rotate this, but because this is constrained, you will have some stresses generated. So and then you have the last module is CNC. Okay. Basically CAM, you can say computer aided manufacturing. So those CAD models will be fed to the CNC software. Okay. Either you can do manual part programming or allow the software to calculate the program. Okay. So this is the introduction, CNC part programming, X, Y, and Z axis. We have some standard notations, like for example, the Z axis on a workpiece rotating CNC turning machine, the Z axis parallel in the spindle. So the Z axis is parallel to the spindle and positive motion moves the tool away from the workpiece. So which side is positive and negative? We can take away to be positive or away to be negative, but the standard notation that is being followed is that the positive motion moves the tool away from the workpiece. So away from the workpiece, parallel to the spindle, okay, like that. On a workpiece, on a tool rotating machine, on other machines. So like that, we have different standard notations for the axis. Okay. Tape input formats, codes. Okay, N word, G word, X word. Preparatory functions, coordinates, machining parameters, tool control. These all will be mentioned in the program. Okay. Machining parameters, you'll specify tool control, cycle function, coolant control, miscellaneous control, interpolators, right? And G, okay, like that. This is what you'll use most often. G codes. So each one having its own meaning. Okay. Like you have syntax in a programming language that you have to specify so and so. So here we have some fixed codes for fixed. Well, we have fixed it for some functions. Rapid traverse. So the tool will immediately move. If you specify G00, it will not care about the speed. It will not, it will just move rapidly. So there is no control of the speed involved here. When you want to control the speed, you will give a particular speed. Linear interpolation, if you want to move linearly from one point to the next. Circular interpolation, like moves in a circular way, clockwise and counterclockwise, G02 and G03 respectively. Dwell, acceleration, deceleration, XY plane. So all these are fixed. Okay, we'll see this and then we'll write the code like that. S code, cutting speed code. Okay, like we'll give it in surface feet per minute, like that. T code specifies the tool number, which tool is to be used, because the CNC machine will have a magazine. Okay, so which tool is to be used from the magazine? A collection of tools will be there. Just to specify which tool is to be used, you use T code, and then M code, miscellaneous code. Like for example, this program stop. If you want to stop the program, you'll use this code. Tool change, optional stop, end of program. To rotate the spindle either clockwise or counterclockwise. So once you specify this, the spindle will start rotating in the clockwise direction, like that. To on and off the coolant as well. Okay. So this is the code turning, for turning this part here, right? You want to turn it from 20 mm diameter to, I'm sorry, 25 to 20. So this is how you'll specify that with code. Okay. And the language we are using is FANUC. Step turning, you see here, in steps we have a reduction of the diameter. So that is your second exercise. And CNC milling, like, okay, you have to have this component. Okay, so sizes will be given, dimensions will be given. So we'll start from one point and then complete the total cycle. Linear and circular interpolation. Okay, any doubt in this CNC part? Yes. Yes. Class is still going on, sir. I have a lab. Okay. Okay, sir. So that was about the introduction. 10:50, right? So let's start with the first exercise. Okay. Is it visible? The AutoCAD screen? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So once you open AutoCAD, this window will open. Okay. This will have the start drawing and the previous drawings. Okay. Once you click on start drawing, the window will open. Okay. This is your drawing space. And you have these is what you call tabs. Okay. Home, insert tab, annotate, parametric, view, manage. Okay. Different tabs. And each tab will have this is what you call panels. Okay. Panels. So, and they are organized like drawing. For drawing, you have this panel. Okay. If there are any extra ones, if you click on this arrow, they will come. Modify, annotation, layers, block. Okay. All these are panels. So, and there is one command here. I mean, there is one shortcut here. Dynamic input. If this is on, if I type something, for example, I type UN, this at the bottom left, you see this options. If this is, if that is on, this dynamic input, then it will be shown. If I switch it off, then it will not be shown here. It will only be shown here. This is called command line. Okay. So instead of here, it will show here. You can either type it here or you can just type. If the dynamic input is on, it will be shown here and you can select from that. So